I'm saying hi, neighbor, this morning to Brianna Lennon. And Brianna is a mom. She's a wife. She's an active community person. And oh, by the way, Brianna, why don't you tell folks out here what else you do?
So I am currently the Boone County Clerk. So we do elections administration. We swear in notaries. We do a lot of things that touch the public that we have had to revamp over the last few weeks.
And why don't we just kind of, I want to talk about how you're doing, how you're coping, maybe tips you have for people not going stir crazy. You know, my wife and I are empty nesters. We're greatly inconvenienced by being isolated. And we're like, oh my gosh, we might be out of Diet Coke soon. We both have said, though, oh my gosh, what if we had kids right now? I mean, I just really empathize and sympathize with people who have, really active families right now. But this past Tuesday, uh, municipal election didn't seem to happen. Can you talk about the decision that was made? What went into that decision, and when might there be an election, and ways that your office has had to adjust to still functioning?
Yeah. So just in terms of being at home with the kids, I'm still going into the office every day. So anywhere between 5 and 8 hours, but we have very reduced staffing, and it's really just me and a couple other people. And we're continuing on the work of the office, so processing voter registrations and all of that. But moving the election really started the day after the presidential preference primary. Seemed to be kind of I don't know if it was the straw that broke the camel's back or something, but really it started rolling on March 11th that we have an election in 4 weeks, and we have this pandemic that is rapidly becoming a problem. And a lot of the county clerks, a lot of the other county clerks, and I started talking about what we could do, because not only were we having this election coming up, but I had already had trouble finding hand sanitizer, finding Clorox wipes to use for the March 10th election. So we were barely scraping by with making sure that we were ready to do the March 10th election. And it was a very real concern that 4 weeks later we'd have to turn it around and do it again when everybody else was running out of supplies again. And not only that, but election judges oftentimes are in the high risk category. So I did the math on who we used for the April election last year, and over 60% of the people were over the age of 60. The mean number was 59 years of age, and we need roughly 250 people to do a full-scale election like that. So asking 250 people to go out there when I was having a hard time finding protection supplies in the first place just started getting more and more untenable. So the clerks that kept talking about it, we were all having the same problems. We talked to the Secretary of State's office. We had all gone in and filed with the court to try to change the date, looking at June 2nd as potentially a safe date that would be past the peak and still be able to do an election and give voters the added time to vote absentee. Because really, if more people can vote absentee, fewer people have to go to the polls, there's fewer exposures. It just works out better that way. So we went to the courts. The courts gave us a good decision around the same time that the governor also did the executive order. So the election was officially moved sometime around March 18th, March 19th to the June 2nd date. So I'm feeling really good about that. It gives us a lot of time to prepare all the contingencies. We're still checking in with election judges to see who's available. We're checking with polling places to see who's available, because those two things are really how you end up with a situation like Wisconsin's election that happened this Tuesday, since they couldn't move their election.
It's where people were waiting in line, and it was pretty congested, wasn't it?
It was, and they had to consolidate a lot of polls because they just didn't have the staff available to put enough election judges. I mean, we're required to have at least 2, but normally 4 election judges at every poll in order for it to run smoothly and in order to comply with Missouri law. So if you think of 4 election judges per the 45 polling places that we use, if I can't get that many judges, we're going to have less than 45 polling places. And there are contingencies built in for that, but I don't expect June to be a normal election by any means. And in the meantime, we're also trying to, as clerks, we're also trying to see what kind of flexibility we can get for August and November in case this continues to be a problem.
Well, let me ask then, are you encouraging people to go ahead and vote absentee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I don't have to say that I'm traveling, I'm out of town, or I'm out of state, but this is a special circumstance.
well, yeah. So the way that the law is written, it says that the voter expects to be able to not go to the poll.
I
And
see.
there are 6 reasons, and one of them happens to be illness or injury, confinement due to illness or injury. And so it's not perfect, but it's an excuse that's available. And people have until May 20th to ask for their absentee ballot. So we still have a long time to be able to do it.
Okay.
So if you just want to hold out and wait and see if you would prefer to go to the polls, you can wait all the way until, May 19th if you want. And our
So
office is technically open for absentee voting too.
now I've never voted absentee. I know there's instructions on how to do that on the county website, showmeboone.com. Click on the clerk's button and we can include links to all that with this episode, with this conversation. Again, you just sort of give the nuts and bolts of how that works.
Sure. So we have, you can download a PDF on our website, or if you have a touchscreen device like a phone, you can fill out the application right online and do a signature with the touchscreen portion of your phone. And then we will get that request and we will mail you a ballot. The application itself just asks for your personal information, where you want the ballot sent to, and the excuse that you're using to vote absentee. And then you'll get in the mail a return postage paid envelope and your ballot and a little instruction sheet that says fill out the ballot, put it in those blue privacy screens. Oh, you're still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Okay. Those blue privacy screens that are included when you go to the poll and you put the ballot in the little blue envelope and then you take it
Okay.
out of the blue envelope. We keep those in there too so that any absentee votes that come back can be shielded from the absentee team. So they are completely private because your identifying information is on the outside of the ballot. So you don't want your private ballot to be ever tied to the identifying information.
Sure.
Keep
Yeah.
that separate. Then you
Okay.
just stick it back in the mail and then we get it back. And it's pretty straightforward. We process them starting on usually the Thursday or Friday before the election. And then they are the first ones to be counted on election day because they end up being the fastest to run through the system.
Let's just say, and don't panic here, but let's say that the election didn't have to be put off another month. Or however many days, would you wait then still to count the absentee ballots up until before the election?
Yeah, so we're not allowed to actually tabulate them until election day.
Okay. So you said limited staff there at the government center. What's the rest of the government center doing right now? Part of my wonderful journalism career was I spent 7.5 years covering county government, which was a very rewarding time. There was a lot of things happening during that time, and just I'm going to say the mundane, day in and day out stuff of running county government that the general public doesn't really get a lot. They don't see a lot. You notice when things go wrong, you say, "Oh, who's watching that?" Well, it's amazing to me that more things don't go wrong because there are so many good people doing their work. The assessor, the collector, the clerk, the county commission, treasurer. Don't want to leave out the auditor. And I'm going to treasure. I'm missing some of the people, but you know what I'm saying here.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, really, we're all on reduced staff right now. But that doesn't mean people aren't working from home. So there are a lot of deadlines that are statutory, like the assessor's office has been working on doing all the personal property declarations that come back. So they're all still doing that. The collector's office is still processing tax payments. And really, the commission is meeting as well. And so we're still posting we're sending out the agendas just like we always have. And then instead of posting the agendas on that bulletin board outside of the clerk's office, which I'm sure you're familiar with walking to and seeing, everything is posted on the glass doors. So you don't have to go into the building to see the agenda. We also, because it's technically closed to the public, except by appointment, we also have set up conference calls for all of the commission meetings. So then the commission meets and everything is done remotely.
Okay. And I'm guessing a lot of that happened pretty rapidly. When
Yes.
the need arose, things changed pretty quickly.
Yes, we had a really good, everyone, as you know from working with them, everyone's very collegial in county government. And so everybody came together to come up with a really good plan. Before we shut the doors and made it appointment only, we did have a few days where we were just limiting where people could go. So what we did was put everything on the first floor that would be public facing. So if someone came in and needed resource management, which is on the third floor, somebody just called up and resource management came down to the first floor to handle it. We moved our absentee voting to the little conference room that's next to the collector's office. So you don't have to come up to the second floor. It's just right on the first floor. And we can keep it sanitized and safe for people. So everything it's still set up that way. So if you were to come in with an appointment, we have tape in different places to direct you where to go. We have signage that's up, and it all happened very fast thanks to all of the really hardworking people that got it done.
Well, I'm wondering, what was the turnout like for that March, the presidential primary? And can you tell anything from that in terms of that the coronavirus was already having an effect on the way people were moving around?
Yeah, so it was considerably lower than I thought it would be. We just broke 30%. I At the time, and I think I still do feel this way, a lot of it was because Super Tuesday was the week before. And without there being, when only one party is really fighting it out and you only have that party turning out, it really depends on what the situation is with that party. And by the time that we got to Missouri's primary, it wasn't that much of a race, or at least it didn't seem like it. So I think there wasn't as much enthusiasm as I had thought there was going to be. And you're right. I think probably the COVID stuff was just starting to get into people's minds. I didn't get much feedback. Voters didn't really say anything like, oh, I really don't feel comfortable going to the polling place today. It was pretty okay. The poll workers felt good that we had procedures in place to give them Clorox wipes and screen wipes and things like that. So everybody felt good about it. But it's looking back, it probably did start percolating in people's minds, and maybe that also meant that the election was just not at the top of their minds, and that's why they didn't turn out.
Well, let's talk about the top of mind topic right now: COVID-19, staying in place, self-isolation, all of these terms. And you are considered an essential essential worker, I guess, and thankfully. But for families that are just finding themselves cooped up, I've even gone so far as to think some families are maybe just kind of getting to know each other now, because you're always on the run, sort of disconnected. You've got this, kids have that, spouses have this. Now they're all stuck together. What insight do you have, either on the way you and your family are dealing with this, or maybe how you see other families coping and adjusting to this?
Well, so we feel extremely fortunate because Scott was already working from home. It's not ideal because he wasn't working from home with children here, but we already had it set up, and he already has a mentality of being able to work from home. I mean, I feel for families that have never had to do it before and that really thrive on being in office spaces, because I know that it's been a very difficult transition for them to be able to feel like they're giving themselves to their families and giving themselves to their jobs in the ways that they have done in the past and want to. Um, we've been really lucky that Scott can do time shifting. And so both of us have been able to get in sufficient hours to get our jobs done, but the kids also haven't really had any problems adjusting. And we also got lucky in a weird way because two things. So Ryan is 5, and so Ryan would be the one that I'd be concerned about being negatively impacted by this. And up until COVID, he actually got flu B and flu A this year.
Oh, no.
And he got it like 3 to 4 weeks apart. So he had been used to, he was home for like a week and a half, and then he would go to school for a few days. And then he was home again for a week and a half. And then we actually transitioned him to a new daycare. So he only had 1 week at his new daycare. So now being at home, I mean, he had so much fluctuation that we created a schedule for him. I mean, we have, he really, really likes having structure. And
Good.
so from the minute that he wakes up, he knows we eat breakfast, he has free time, we do a movement activity, so we do some music or something like that. He gets to have morning snack. I mean, we kept everything basically like what daycare was, and that has really helped. And then it also allows him to have his own independent time, which is great because Izzy's 15 months old and she needs a lot of attention as well. But she also still takes a 3-hour nap every day.
Oh.
So we can still get things done like the housework and things like that that need to
Uh-huh.
be taken care of, because he can play independently while she is napping. But the biggest thing that has helped is being able to go outside. If this was happening in the dead of winter, I don't know how we would be surviving. We
Yeah.
take a lot of walks. We take like 2 or 3 walks a day. Scott took them up to Mark Twain State Park the other day just to let him run it out. I've taken him to Rockbridge, and we try to go in the off hours to make sure that we're social distancing and nobody else is around. But in a lot of ways, more outside time, I think, has helped us as a family be closer too, because you get to kind of bond out in nature, and
Yeah.
it's been really nice. But being outside by far, if you have small children, is the best thing to do, because you can just let them run and you don't have to worry about it that much, and they get their energy out and they get to learn about all the different parts of nature. We have a little garden and he loves that too.
Well, in our Brian being 5, I wonder if he's got questions about, hey, Mom, Dad, what's going on? And I bet Izzy at 15 months is not really too worried about it.
Yeah. Well, I think Izzy is thrilled that her older brother's around, because Ryan is nothing if not a doting brother.
Oh, really?
And when they're in daycare, they're not in the same room, so they don't get to see each other very often. So this is the first time in a while they've been able to play at home for an extended period of time. So she's thrilled about that, because she loves following him around and he loves that she follows him around. So that's nice.
Yeah.
But he does have questions. And we try to make sure that we're having ongoing conversations to make sure we're checking in with his emotions. And he calls it's kind of adorable. He calls it the sickness. And so when we can't do something, or when we're trying to socially distance, he'll be like, oh, that's because of the sickness.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
he's got an awareness of it, and we've tried to incorporate it into some of the other things. He'll watch the Magic School Bus, and there was an episode on microbes. And so I said, yeah, see, the sickness is microbes. We want to keep our microbes to ourselves. So
good.
he gets that.
Yeah. And then he can explain it to Izzy in whatever language they have, right?
Yep.
Well, Brianna, thanks for this chat this morning, for taking time out of your day and keeping the functions of Boone County government going. Is there anybody you want to kind of give a shout out to, or maybe a final word of advice for folks?
I mean, huge thank you to the work that the Columbia County Health Department's doing, and MU and Boone Hospital for all of the work that they're doing, because this is not an easy time for them. And for the small businesses that are continuing to serve people, because it's not an easy time for anybody. And I really appreciate how our community's been coming together to do things. And I think that generally we're doing well here. I think that everybody here kind of recognizes that we're all in this together, and I'm very proud. This is, one of those times I can say I am extremely proud of being from Boone County, and watching the community come together has just been really great, even in the face of having all of this uncertainty. And I know emotions are running high, and it's not fun for anybody, but I'm proud to be from here and be part of the community.
Well, and I'm grateful for the work that you do, Brianna, and always grateful for your congeniality, and wish you and your family the very best.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.